to bounce off what Mark and Old Crypto Geek were saying, I think Rock Pies, it's a good initiative for that individual solo staker who wants the autonomy and not necessarily wants to delegate or just wants to control their funds. But me, the picture that I see, the landscape that I see, I want to see a lot of commercial solutions. I want to see this project serious. I don't want everyone running a little Raspberry Pi or Rock Pi in their bedroom on their modem or slow internet or whatever home internet that they have. I don't think it's serious. I think that when investors come in and they see if like all 1,000 pools were running on a Rock Pi, that's what we would that's the definition of Cardano. That's what people would see Cardano as. Not necessarily that it could run on Rock Pies, but that it's running on low powered products. And I don't think that conveys a sense of seriousness, security, and I think that there are issues with that long term. You need to have business solutions, proper business solutions, and you need to have powerhouses that are competing in order to give it that name brand, that name validity.
Yeah,
So
especially if you want big brands and big enterprises to use the chain for their financial conduct.
exactly.
I agree with you. I think that I agree with you in part. I think decentralization of the network is very important, and the network as a whole will. We'll be able to view the network as a whole. I think that you'll see those larger industrial solutions come about naturally because they're economically incentivized to do so. But just as the average user is incentivized to be sovereign, I think that you'll see this decentralization happening on these low-powered devices at scale. In parallel to these industrial solutions. I think both are very important.
They are, which leads us to the next question that we had in here was, what hardware do you think would be effective? What hardware do you use? What hardware do you recommend? So what hardware are you guys using, especially USCG? Mark spoke briefly this morning, but guys, feel free to tell us what hardware are you using and what hardware do you think will be effective for a good full-powered pool. And I'm not talking, we don't need Apple and IBM and Google working on this. I think you guys can do this. I think you guys can pull this off. What do you think is good hardware?
Well, myself, for testnet stuff, I've been running just DigitalOcean or Google Cloud servers because costs are a factor, right? This is not, it's, you have to pay for all the resources you use, whether you're a home gamer or whatnot, right? Miners know this story very well. So keeping costs low is paramount. But at the same time, an investment in hardware pays off in the long run. Right, so we're going to be using a combination of the two to guarantee our pool's uptime and taking things like redundant power supplies into consideration and software backups and automated monitoring tools and that type of thing. But again, all of these things take resources and planning.
So DigitalOcean, you can get some pretty good industrial grade, high uptime.
Well, like I say, DigitalOcean is great as a cloud provider. I'm using them strictly for the testnet phase right now. You can spin up a droplet for $40 a month or whatever. So.
What about bandwidth? How much does that cost?
Well, like I say, that's my costs right now are pretty minimal on the testnet, but I think that we'll see that change as traffic starts increasing because we haven't seen a lot of transaction volume. Most of the packets have been just empty blocks and lots of empty blocks and that type of thing, but. Testing is evolving. right now, getting a stable network has been the biggest focus, which has really happened quite quickly, I think, considering how many people are, like you have to consider what's happening right now. There's hundreds of people trying to connect to 4, 5, 6 computers or whatever servers that IOHK is running as trusted peers. A lot of these people that are doing this have improperly configured settings, have incompatible, their node configs are incompatible with the software they're running, or they don't understand the upgrade process, or they've got a broken build, or whatever the problem
Their
is.
port forwarding is wrong.
Yeah, the port forwarding is a huge problem for most people, but yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just craziness. It's not an ordered connection pattern happening on this poor network, right? But even under these circumstances, Poldercast is managing to make connections and establish new peers. And you see some people are running large amounts of RAM because they're handling hundreds and hundreds of connections. So the system is working. It's the frustration most people are having is because they don't understand how to actually make it work.
Okay, so let's say you're a consultant. I'm a new pool operator. What hardware should I buy?
Well, that's very, very dependent on you, Rick. What systems are you comfortable with? Who's actually going to be running this system, right? Like that is the question. Myself as an operator, I prefer Linux-based systems. And you can pretty much buy anything and run a Linux-based system on it. So I really like Dell servers. I think they're probably the best value for the dollar, and if you look around, you can get a good deal on a rack-mounted server. You could build a system if you were so inclined. But again, it comes down to operator competency and comfortability. Who's running it? What do you know how to do? How are you going to do it? Make a plan. Go give her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if someone's familiar with Windows, you can run it on Windows.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, lots of critical services run on server versions of Windows. Don't run it on Windows 10. That's a crazy idea.
Right.
But if you run it on 2016 R2, or I think 2019 is out, I don't see any problem with that. It's definitely a viable solution.
Absolutely. A lot of people are really familiar with the .NET framework, right? The Microsoft system. So
yeah.
Totally. It makes sense.
Yeah. Is there that big of a difference between, say, Windows 10 and Windows Server that for running industrial grade software?
Yeah, I'd say, it's the same comparison as comparing it to run it on the industrial server versus running it on a Rock Pi.
Windows 10 is like your crazy ex-girlfriend, man. She's spying on you.
Well, that's one thing.
What do you guys think about SUSE Linux and CentOS? Have you ever used those?
So I use CentOS for the testnet, for the non-incentivized, because I can publish Docker images on the public Docker hub. But for the production, I made a deal with the Czech branch of SUSE, because I have a long lasting relationship with them, and they just gave me a sweet deal for that with the commercial support. So I'm gonna run the production on that.
Nice.
That's really cool.
Yeah. What about Ubuntu 18.04 LTS? Has anyone ever used that one?
That's what I'm running, just because I've always run Ubuntu. I mean, I only started even really using Linux a few years ago, and it was quite a learning curve for me, Hey.
Yeah.
So I never in my life used a really Debian-based system.
Yeah.
So I don't know how to make like Debian packages, but
Yeah.
I know all about making RPM packages. So I always stick with the RPM based distros.
Right.
Yeah.
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 I'm not worried about trying to make packages or anything like that for Debian, or we'll handle our packages ourselves, I guess, but
Yeah. Well, what 18.04 LTS is easy to use. If someone is new to Linux, I would suggest it. It's worth a try. It's free, and I believe it's pretty solid. I think so. Just my opinion. And I enjoyed using LTS. I would love to use it again.
they're all excellent in their own right. The software is, or the kernels have come a long way. The Linux project is awesome. It's been the learning Linux and learning how servers work has been the biggest benefit to learning about crypto for me. I had to learn how to run Linux servers in order to run my Bitcoin D. I didn't have to. I wanted to do it that way, I should say, right? And that whole process of learning how to run nodes, trying to sync an Ethereum node. Have you ever tried to do that?
Yeah. It's
Geth, I don't know who.
Dude, the last time I synced an Ethereum node, it took like 680 gigabytes of my terabyte. And I'm like, delete.
Yeah.
And it took a while. I think it took 2 days.
It wasn't until
It took 2 days of gigabit Ethernet.
It wasn't until I used Parity that I fully synced an Ethereum node. Parity is far superior to Geth, in my opinion.
Yeah.